Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of To The Point, brought to you by the American Acupuncture Council. My name is Mel Hopper Koppelman, and I'm excited to be here with you this week. And so what I wanted to do today was a little bit of a different format than what I've done in the past with presentations, which is to draw your attention to what I think for many people is a very valuable resource on acupuncture's evidence and explaining it clearly. You can use this with patients, you can use this with medical practitioners, and even just to get yourself up to speed on what evidence that there is, what are the different categories, and what it says. I frequently get requests and questions from people through my role with evidence-based acupuncture asking for resources on that they can show to different people that show that acupuncture works and that it's safe. And actually, I created this overview specifically because in 2003, the World Health Organization published a review of acupuncture and which different conditions it could be used for. And it was very positive, and it says lots of very nice things about acupuncture. And so a lot of practitioners link to this on their website and promote it and say, yay, this is really a great endorsement. But there's a few problems with that. One is that it was 2003, so it's really, really, really quite old, older than the first iPhone. And second, that it wasn't very methodologically rigorous document. So we do often get criticized for using it to support as evidentiary support, and we don't need to use it anymore because there is much stronger, better, more robust, higher quality evidence. And so I want to make sure we all know about it and we can use something else instead. So what we see here is the evidence-based acupuncture homepage, which you can get to at evidencebasedacupuncture.org. And if you come over here to where it says acupuncture, and then the first choice here is acupuncture, an overview of scientific evidence. And so this summary is available completely for free. So, you can take your time and scroll down and take a look at what it shows. But what I'm going to present to you, just because it's a little bit easier to look at together in this format, is this PDF that was created. So I'm just going to switch over to that, but that's also available completely for free. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of it, that they're using it and sharing it, and also let us know if there's anything that we can do to make it even more useful. So let's see. I'm just get over. Here we go. Resume chat. Perfect. So this is what this document looks like. And so this is really intended to be a high-level overview, just giving the lay of the land on the evidence for acupuncture. And another thing that I've included in here quite intentionally is also a comparison to the evidence for conventional medicine as well. That's something that sometimes we're a little bit shy about doing. But when people ask, does acupuncture work? There's usually an unspoken assumption there that conventional medicine works. And so it can be worth respectfully and in a professional manner exploring that assumption to see if that's the case as well. Because when we're deciding amongst treatment options, patients aren't really, or their doctors aren't really deciding whether or not to go for acupuncture. It's, how does acupuncture compare to their available options in terms of effectiveness, safety, cost effectiveness, and so on. And so I think it's helpful for us to present that together. So I'm just going to walk through this, in a very overview way. I don't think you'll be able to really read it as we go through, but I do encourage you to download it and have it on your hard drive and look at it at your leisure and share it. So the first section is really an overview of the evidence for acupuncture. One thing that sometimes gets said by critics is that there's no evidence for acupuncture. Well, that's really simply not true. So we know from a recent study that there's over 13,000 studies on acupuncture. We can compare that in terms of studies that are registered in the Cochrane database, that there's only 7,000 for physiotherapy. So we have a lot of evidence, and that evidence is growing in terms of quality as well as quantity over time. And then in terms of just summarizing, what does that evidence show? Does it show that it works or it doesn't work? What's the deal there? In 2017, there was a huge review that was done by John McDonald and Stephen Jantz over in Australia. And it was an update to several previous reviews. And this is looking at the evidence for acupuncture for every single condition for which there is evidence. So it's a really good place to start. They also look at safety and cost effectiveness, but they found that there is moderate or strong evidence for acupuncture for 46 different conditions. And I think that that's something that's helpful for us to be aware of. So that's really what we're pointing to there. And also this document's fully referenced. So it's just a really good time-saving device, for you to be able to find good quality evidence and then maybe update your search if you look for something newer than, say, January 2017. We also had a very talented graphic designer, Jackie Jewell, who's also over in Australia, create these images for us. And here the intention is, there's evidence that this is what's happening. So needles going in and nerve sensing it, but we also want to replace some of the misconceptions that we as a profession are suggesting that we're treating people with acupuncture and that mainly we're using magic to make that happen. And we know a lot more about how acupuncture works for the various things that we use it for than a lot of conventional treatments. And so again, raising that awareness of how acupuncture activates the nervous system is a useful thing to be able to do. So on the left here, this is a list of the conditions that McDonald and Jantz found acupuncture had evidence of a positive effect, these 8 conditions. And then there's another 36 conditions here. So I'll let you read through them in your own time, but just to be aware that there's good evidence for acupuncture for those conditions. And so we can say that. In the upper right-hand part here, we're highlighting some really cool research that's come out recently. Stephen Birch and his team have been working really, really hard collecting every single recommendation for acupuncture in medical guidelines. So there's another conception that acupuncture is not, or say a misconception that acupuncture is not accepted by mainstream medicine. Their evidence found that there's over 2,000 official conventional recommendations for acupuncture for hundreds of health problems. And this is outside of China and Southeast Asia. So by that reckoning, acupuncture is actually one of the most recommended treatments in conventional medicine. So we can really update our beliefs as this sort of fringe outside disrespected medicine. That's really just not the case. There's good evidence for what we do, and it's for that reason it's frequently recommended in medical guidelines. And then if we come down to the bottom of this page, now this is sort of the putting it into context. So this is the evidence for acupuncture. What's the evidence for conventional medicine? And so what I found recently in researching this was that a number of different guidelines looking at different measures of this found that roughly 50% of conventional treatments are evidence-based. So this is coming from a number of high-quality, well-respected publications. One was the Mayo Clinic produced one. One was looking at the American College of Cardiology, that 50% of their recommendations are based on opinion, and a few others. So, this is helpful to have a more accurate context from which to describe what we're doing, and to and not to have a go at conventional medicine, but certainly to question the assumption or belief that you can pretty much rely on getting something evidence-based when you go for conventional medicine. That's really not the case. It is more like a coin toss, statistically speaking. And then on the left-hand side here, and kind of moving on from that idea, there's also a problem with the overuse of medical treatments and medical services, whether they be treatments or screening. And this paper that we're referencing here defines overuse as the provision of medical services for which the potential for harm exceeds the potential for benefit. That's kind of crucial. So we're not just looking at, does it work? It's like, is it more likely to harm than help? And they found, I think it's about 80 different treatments that are being overused. This was in a number of different countries, and including, this was the top 10 that using TMS in patients with previous breast cancer, 73% of the time, that's more likely to cause more harm than benefit. So, again, this is not to be sort of unfairly critical of conventional medicine, but really just to look at what the published literature is showing us when we then have a conversation about acupuncture's evidence base. On the right side here, this is an estimate of these researchers that were published in the BMJ, in the British Medical Journal, which is a very well-respected journal, found that in the United States, medical error is the third leading cause of death in the United States. That's the medical system, as you know, and this is not even looking at people who die from appropriately prescribed and distributed treatment. So, you know, again, this is something that we need to take into consideration, that sort of demonstrates that sometimes, in many cases, people would be better off just not having treatment than having the treatment on offer. And then on the top here, this is kind of cool. So this is highlighting a relatively new study design called a network meta-analysis. And that's where we can look at a number of different treatments for the same condition head to head. And so this section of this review, we're looking at 4 different network meta-analyses. And when acupuncture is put head to head with other treatments, it tends to do really well. So that tends to be quite helpful for patients and other medical colleagues to know. And then we go on to look at some of the mechanisms that are known, and I'll let you read through here. We look at some of the nervous system mechanisms, biochemistry, brain mapping, and so on. And again, this is not to oversimplify what we do in our models, but simply to use the predominant language of biomedicine in our explanations so that we can better articulate how acupuncture is working to people who might be interested. And then, one thing that we do here is address what I see as one of the most common criticisms of people who, when we show positive evidence, and this happens not just from medical skeptics on the internet. I've seen this happen even when medical guidelines are being developed, that there's this idea that that research coming out of China is not reliable. And so if a lot of research on acupuncture is coming out of China, then it's suspect. And so my question has always been, well, what is the evidence on the quality issues of research coming out of China versus other places? Because, China's not the only place that has this problem. And I did find a study that really looked at this and compared systematic reviews coming out of China versus the United States in terms of bias and other problems, and they found that the quality was just the same. So really just addressing that common criticism, but again, using the evidence. So it's nice. It's a short document. It doesn't take long. We've got all these nice references, and so basically, I wanted to make sure that people are aware that this exists as a resource, so that you can use it, you can share it. We will be developing more resources. Let us know if there's something that we can do to help you. And hopefully this is helpful for you in your communication with whoever you're communicating with about what we do, and in finding an easy way to find out what the evidence shows. So I hope that was helpful. And next week, same time, same place, Pony Chang will be here on To The Point. And so I hope you'll join us for that. And thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye.